Hey guys, welcome back to In the Eye. Today's podcast is hosted by Olivia Smallridge, Campbell Bennett, and our special guest today is
David Vincent, Citrus County Sheriff.
So, Mr. Vincent, can you tell us a little bit about your path to becoming a sheriff and what made you want to go into law enforcement?
Yeah, so that, it's quite a long time ago, as we were talking earlier. I think when I think about becoming a police officer, I would say I was probably about 14 years old. I realized that was a job that interested me and thought it was something that I could obviously make a career out of. When I got into it, it's the excitement of being a law enforcement officer. You're chasing bad guys and putting them in jail. So that was kind of the attraction, I guess you could say. And as you get older, I think as you start experiencing that career, you realize that you're out there serving people. I think that deep down inside, I probably didn't know it at 14 years old, but I do like serving this community and people. That's really what this job is about. It is fun chasing bad guys, but this job is so much more than that. It's really about serving your community. So once you get into that and you realize that, hey, there's a lot of things to do in this career field. I will tell you that for most of my career, I never thought of being sheriff. That wasn't a goal of mine when I started. I just wanted to come out and be a good cop. And, I had a lot of experiences over my time. I started my first job at the sheriff's office way back in 1993. I know that makes me sound really old, but my first job was a 911 operator. That was my first job here at the sheriff's office. And I answered 911 calls. And then I became a radio operator. And it's interesting because back then, our sheriff's office was much smaller back in 1993. But the sheriff at the time, Sheriff Charles Dean, he didn't hire you to be a deputy. You either had to go work at the jail. We ran the jail at the time, or you had to start in the dispatch center. So I chose to start in the dispatch center. So I spent a year there before I became a patrol deputy. And from there, I became a narcotics detective and did that for about 7 years. I was an undercover guy, out buying drugs for a living, but I was doing it legally. I was the good guys. And then I made a whole 180 and became a school resource officer. So that was around 2002, I guess, 2003. My first school was Citrus Springs Middle School, and then I transferred right here to Citrus High School about 5 years later. So, and I was trying to remember the years I was here. I believe it was like the 07-08 school year when I transferred here, and I was here almost 5 years here at Citrus High School. So go Canes, and had a great time. But I realized that if I wanted to continue to promote at the sheriff's office, I had to get out of being a school resource officer. So I became a sergeant, lieutenant, and I ran our police academy over at Withlacoochee Technical College as a captain there, and became a special operations captain before I retired in 2020. During my time, one of the fun facts about me is I was a bomb squad guy back when we started our bomb team back in 1997. I was one of our first original members of that team. And when I retired, I was the bomb team commander there. So I love blowing stuff up. I just did it legally. It's really fun blowing stuff up, if you didn't know that. But I've had a great career, and then I retired in 2020 to become the police chief for the school district. So from 2020 to 2024, I was the police chief. And it was really during that time, I left our sheriff's office in 2020. I didn't really agree with some of the things that were happening in the direction of the previous sheriff. So I took that opportunity to be the chief here. And it was really during that time that I said, you know what? I really feel like our agency here in Citrus County needed a change of direction, decided to run for sheriff. A good friend of mine was running for sheriff back in 2016. His name was Phil Royal. Phil was a school resource officer, had a great career here too, but right before the election that year, he passed away from a heart attack. We were running the Key Training Center run from Tallahassee back here to Crystal River, and he passed away from a heart attack. So that really kind of I would say that event in my life really changed the future about how I thought about maybe potentially becoming sheriff one day. So yeah, it's been 33 years in June. I've been doing this. So that's
wow.
Great ride.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It is.
So you've definitely had to work your way up.
Yeah. I started, from an entry level position, and I tell young people that all the time. take the opportunity to get into an organization or whatever it is that you think you might want to be, 5-10 years later. And I always tell people, I feel like sometimes a younger generation wants to rush into jobs. They want to say, I want to be the boss. I've been here a year. Why am I not the boss? And I'm like, well, the best supervisors that I've ever come in contact with are people that had well-rounded experiences throughout the organization. So if you know more about the bits and pieces of an agency or an organization, you're going to be a much better supervisor, leader, CEO, whatever that is. And for me, I did almost every job at the sheriff's office. There wasn't a whole lot of jobs I didn't do there. So I think that really kind of set me up to be a good candidate to run our sheriff's office here. So I think it's important to not rush into things and get experience in whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, definitely working all those jobs, I feel like definitely changes your perspective. And now being like kind of towards top that you are, it lets you to be able to understand them better, and because you were in that position. So, yeah.
And I think, when I look back at my first job, our communications officers, that's a job that's the public really never sees them in person, but they're usually the first people that they contact because they're calling 911. So I have a special heart in my place for our dispatchers out there, and they do a great job. And I think they appreciate that their sheriff was one time a communications officer too. So I understand their job.
Definitely. So what was that like being a 911 operator?
Yeah, it's it's extremely rewarding job. You're helping people. I always tell people people aren't calling 911 when they're having a good day. It's usually during an emergency. So to have that calm person on the other end of the line to help guide you through whatever it is that you're dealing with, I think is important. Is it a stressful job? It's a stressful job. There's some crazy things that happen to people and what they're experiencing. So you've got to, it has personal stresses on you too. So, but it's a great job. It's a rewarding job. You could be delivering babies one day and then, helping someone with a vehicle accident, it's always something different every day. And if you're looking for a job like that, that's never the same thing, that's a great place to work.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would kind of scare me doing that, like having people's lives, like I'm hearing, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're trying to be comforting, but it's also like, oh my gosh, like emergencies.
Yeah, we train you pretty well. A communications officer is in training about 3 months before they're actually on their own answering calls and stuff. So you have a lot of training. And what I've realized over the years is whatever stressful situation you get into, as long as you're trained well, you just revert back to your training. So when that stressful thing is happening, you go, okay, I know what to do, and just go by the numbers, and it usually works out.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of talked about all the jobs that you had. So is there any other kind of career paths in like the sheriff's department that people would take that might be interesting?
Yeah,
kind of different.
There is so many, and we're considered a medium-sized sheriff's office. Obviously, there's bigger agencies. If you go to a bigger city here in Florida, like Tampa or Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami, that are, they have all kinds of stuff going on. But even for our sheriff's office, I tell people one of the most interesting sections is probably our forensics. I think people are most intrigued by that. When I was here as a young detective, all of the people assigned to forensics were sworn law enforcement guys. They were police officers that did that as a job. Now that whole section is civilian, so you don't have to be a police officer. We have one person there. She has her doctorate degree in forensic science. So, they're the crime scene people. They go out and figure how things happen. They look at things like blood spatter and footprints and all of those things and collect all that evidence. So, very interesting work that they do. It's all science-based for that. We have, everything from mechanics to pilots and planes and drone operators and all of these things. So there's always an opportunity for somebody at our sheriff's office if they want to be in that environment. So, I think we have a great sheriff's office. I think I'm biased to that probably. But, there's always great opportunities for folks that want to work for our local agencies. So,
yeah, definitely. I feel like you see like all the forensics like in the movies and stuff. It's crazy to think like that's actually people's jobs. Like that's crazy. That's always really interested me doing that type of work.
Yeah. Yeah, once you get a taste of that adrenaline in this job, yeah, it's hard to say I'm just going to go sit behind a desk and do stuff, which is what I do now, unfortunately. But I've had a plenty of years of chasing things and people, and so I enjoy it. I really look at my job today and I tell our executive team, when you look at our sheriff's officers, about 5 of us that make the executive branch of the sheriff's office. And I say our job is really to come to work every day and make it better for our employees. And as long as we do that every day, we're doing a good job. They're going out and doing the hard work. They're chasing people, putting people in jail, doing all the things behind the scenes. And really, when you get to this level, it's just about making their job easier and kind of breaking down obstacles for them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more. It seems like there's a lot more jobs than I thought there was. Yeah. There's a lot more things to do than I thought.
Yeah, we have records divisions. We have people now that we implemented body cameras last year. So there's people that help us. Really, their main job is reviewing body cam video and sending out public records requests and all that stuff. So there's all kinds of moving parts at the sheriff's office. So
kind of shifting to like the more community aspect of it, what is the biggest problem in Citrus County you'd say right now?
The biggest problem, I think that the 2 things that probably are at the forefront of most of the news and all that is probably substance abuse and mental health. I've seen a huge shift in that over the years. I was a narcotics guy for a long time, and I really saw how drugs affected families. I would like to say that it's gotten better, but I would say that it's probably not gotten better. I think there's some feelings out in society about acceptance of certain levels of drugs, and I've always been against that. I think people, there's a faction of people that say marijuana it's a victimless crime. But I will tell you, I've seen people killed over marijuana, and it's not a victimless crime to deal in those kind of things. So, and I also say, and you guys, if you came up through Citrus County schools and went through the Focus program, did you guys get through Focus?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Talking about drugs and gateway drugs, marijuana is a drug that it's just the start of other things. And that's what always scares me about youth is say, if you're trying that, then you're never going to feel that high again unless you try something different. And that's a little bit scary for me. So substance abuse is a big deal. And I always advocate to young people is just don't go down that road. I have seen what it does to people, and it's not good. It's not a pretty road. So that and mental health, I think, whatever the cause of mental health rise, or I think people are just more aware of mental health these days than they were 30 years ago. So making sure that we're providing resources as a community. I sit on some boards and committees trying to figure out how do we get people resources to help them with the things that they're struggling with. But those are probably the 2 biggest issues is mental health and substance abuse. And unfortunately, a lot of times those 2 things are tied very closely together.
Okay. So. I think that's important, like starting an awareness in like elementary school, like you were talking about, is important. Yeah. I even know the Anti-Drug Coalition, they're doing the Protect Your Game stuff. Like they've done it with some of the sports, like doing the classes and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool that they're like implementing what the focus was kind of to now.
So another fun fact, I was an original board member of the Anti-Drug Coalition.
Oh, wow.
That was a long time ago. Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. So what does being sheriff actually involve that people might not realize?
What people might not realize, I think that people might not realize how involved not only myself as a sheriff, there's 67 counties in Florida and everywhere. So there's 67 of us in the state. We try to be actively involved in a lot of legislation. There's a lot of things that we advocate for at the state level to say, hey, we don't think this is a good law coming down. I try not to spend a lot of time in Tallahassee because my focus is Citrus County. But sheriffs get involved in a lot of things that help, steer laws and things like that. So I found that interesting. I've always told people I'm not a politician. I've just been a cop for 33 years now. But politics is kind of interesting. If you're interested in figuring out how to fix things and how to make things better, it really starts by changing laws and how that affects people. So So I have become interested in that. So sheriffs get involved in a lot of policy and laws that people might not realize, and we advocate. We have a sheriff's association that all of us belong to. It's probably one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the whole state of Florida is Florida Sheriffs. So really cool stuff happening behind the scenes that a lot of people will never see that work.
Yeah, I definitely did not know that. I didn't think of that. Would you be interested in moving up, or is this like your...
Now, my wife says I have to retire. Yeah, so I think, my goals for myself is I see myself running for election at least one more time, and these are 4-year cycles. So in 2028, I'll run for sheriff again. And if I complete that term, that'll be like 41 years doing this. And my wife says that's probably enough. Yes. So, but yeah, you never know. I feel young. I still feel like I'm 25, but my body says I'm not. So yeah.
Still feel like you could chase the bad guys.
Yeah, I can still chase them. Yeah, I beat most of our young guys at the PT course. So yeah,
that's pretty.
Yeah, I'm pretty competitive.
That's good. Push them to be better.
Yeah, that's right. I might get off your lazy butt and let's go. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's gone pretty quick today.
Is it? 15?
Yeah.
Wow, it's 16 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. Crazy.
So thank you for coming on.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to get in and talk with you guys, and the great things happen in Citrus County, and I love Citrus High School. And last one, go Canes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Campbell's going to wrap us up with our important dates for the upcoming week. I have a couple. So first, on Monday, May 4th, we have the NHS induction ceremony at 3 p.m. And then on May 5th, we have a band concert, and that's from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And then on May 7th, we have our senior awards, and that's at 6 p.m. All right, sounds good. Exciting time for seniors coming up. It is. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for coming.
Anytime.
All right, well, that's it. I hope you guys have a good week and tune in next week.